Hard to believe, but it's nearly 4 months since Hurricane Sandy caused such devastation on our coast and here in New Jersey and other places. Many people are still without their homes and struggling to pull their lives together. My two guests today are working hard to try to give relief to the many who are suffering in the wake of Hurricane Sandy. Bob Hodnett and Maria Nikolatos work for our diocese and Catholic Charities Disaster Response Program. This program was created after the 9/11 tragedy, and since then the program has responded to Hurricane Katrina as well as other local disasters in our area in response. Maria is the program coordinator and supervisor of the Disaster Response Program. Welcome, Maria.
Thank you.
Got a lot of things here about yourself. She's worked for Catholic Charities Disaster Response Program since 2003. In 2003, Catholic Charities Disaster Response Program was offering services to those directly affected by the terrorist attacks of September 11th. No one will ever forget that. She worked with survivors, families that lost a loved one, first responders, as well as individuals who lost their employment due to the events of that fateful day. Maria has received extensive disaster training from FEMA and the state of New Jersey, including having received and served as a New Jersey State Certified Crisis Counselor. She's also participated in a number of state and county disaster training over the last 10 years. Maria is currently the co-chair of the Mercer County Voluntary Organizations Active in Disaster, VOAD, and chairperson of the case management committees of both the Ocean and Monmouth County Long-Term Recovery Committees. She also holds seats at the New Jersey VOAD as well as Burlington and Monmouth VOADs. How do you do it?
A lot of time
management. Take a deep breath.
A lot of time management.
You know, as my father used to say, take two and hit the right and keep working.
Exactly.
Bob Hodnett is the Associate Director of Children and Family Services and Director of the Disaster Response Program of Catholic Charities Diocese of Trenton. He's been with our Catholic Charities for over 20 years. Thanks, Bob. It's a lot of time and a lot of work. He holds a master's degree in social work and is a licensed clinical social worker. In addition to disaster response, he has administrative responsibilities for the following programs: family growth programs in Mercer and Monmouth, which treat victims of sexual abuse, child abuse, and other family violence. Again, bless you. Thank you for doing that kind of work. Mental health counseling programs for children and youth in Mercer County and Monmouth County. Mercer Mobile Response Services, which responds to children and adolescents in crisis. Project Free Neptune, an intensive outpatient substance abuse treatment program. Beacon House, transitional living program for youth who are aging out of foster care. Diocesan and parish-related services that include the Victims Assistance Program for victims of priest sexual abuse, as well as premarital counseling services. Bob helped start most of these programs and has been involved with disaster response since 9/11. He also serves as chair of the Long-Term Recovery Committee for Monmouth County. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you.
Whoa, two of you are giants. Wow. Again, I say thank you for both, because they're tremendous, tremendous aids to people that are hurting in crisis or whatever happens in the lives of human people. Wouldn't it be nice if we could just push a button and
It would all go away.
What was that thing? They lived happily ever after?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, we all have to struggle, I guess, and then maybe live happily ever after.
Exactly.
But welcome.
Thank
Tell me a little bit, if you don't mind, about this disaster response program, how it began over 10 years ago in response to 9/11, which again I said we'll never, never forget.
Yeah. When 9/11 happened, our office in Red Bank in Monmouth County was immediately involved, because Monmouth County was one of the hardest hit counties in the state. So everybody wanted to do something, and we said, well, let's do what we do best, which was mental health counseling. That's what we knew. So we started providing counseling for families of the victims, for people affected in any way, people suffering post-traumatic stress, and just began to do groups and individuals therapy with those folks. That's what we knew how to do. And at the same time, as you know, there was a lot of donations coming in to various organizations, and they were looking for a reputable organization to help distribute those funds and to work with the families, the survivors, in making plans for recovering from the tragedy. So the United Way, Catholic Charities USA, organizations like that got in touch with us and said they wanted us to help them. So we set up the disaster response program and began doing that work and worked with families for many years after 9/11.
Yeah.
It's amazing, you know, that it's hard to heal. And when you say many years, there are still folks today that are still have images and feelings, and so you have to continue the work. It never stops.
I'd say I think my most memorable experience I had was seeing our waiting room, which is normally filled with families and young children and so on, was filled with young widows, people who died in the towers, waiting there to start a group. And the grief was just, you could cut it with a knife. It was just, just insufferable.
I said I remember it well. I remember it well even as a priest. You know, I spent a couple of days as a police chaplain and also just in a parish when I was the pastor. And those memories, now that I'm thinking, we talk like this, you know, there was a young, beautiful young gal who I did her wedding, and her husband was, you know, his life was taken away. And she was with child. So then I baptized the child. I get tears in my eyes. Don't you kinda, you know, I'm a softie here. But and then time went on. She met another gentleman, another beautiful guy. I did that wedding, and they had a child. I baptized that child.
Wow.
So somehow there's death and resurrection, but not always easy, and not always, and a lot of pain. And so again, thank you for and lots of folks like yourselves and firemen, policemen. I mean, the whole works. I mean, and lots of neighbors. You know, just good people. There's a lot of good people in the world. You know.
Absolutely.
And, so thank God we can continue. What about some of the other disasters that you help with? I mentioned Katrina. I mean, that's a little bit away from us, but you know, what else did you do, and what other disasters do we work with?
Well, with Katrina, a lot of individuals don't realize that we had individuals that were displaced out of Katrina, that they were being bused out of the affected areas. And they were being placed on buses and not knowing where they were going to end up. And we had over 300, I believe it was over 300 families that ended up in New Jersey that we assisted.
Interesting, Maria. I didn't never hear that.
A lot of people didn't realize that in New Jersey, but we had a lot of evacuees from Katrina, and we worked with them. We provided counseling services, which was one of the biggest parts of Catholic Charities that we can offer. But we also provided, that's when we started to really provide advocacy and case management in the sense of trying to set them up in homes here, getting their children back into schools, trying to develop that normalcy back in their lives. And a lot of them came with no paperwork, so we had to get them situated with getting all that paperwork started up again in their identification in order to set up some services. So
just basic needs, food and clothing,
basic
and
needs,
place to stay.
a lot of it. So we did a lot of work with Katrina evacuees, and we also did a lot of mutual aid where we were sent to other dioceses in the affected areas, such as we were in Texas, we were in Arkansas, and various other agencies.
So some of your staff from here went down there.
Yeah, I did a lot of training down there. Yeah. So we helped facilitate the startups of disaster programs in those areas that needed to then provide the same services that we had been providing for 9/11 victims and families that were affected.
And you know what, any of these disasters, as much as the newspapers can show us pictures, it's nothing like being there or going there and seeing with your own eyes. I mean, you just, you can't put it in words.
Right.
Absolutely.
You know, and to talk to people and just feel that pain that's inside of them, and either losing a loved one, losing your home, losing,
memories.
Memories.
A lot of people lost their, I mean, you think about it, and your memories are either in photos or videos, and they've lost all of that.
Sure.
So it's a grieving process, not only for their home and their lives that has changed, but also they are believing that it's their memories that are going to be gone.
You know, it's like losing part of you.
It is.
Right.
You know, it's almost like waking up and saying, "Gee, something's missing," and not being able to get it back sometimes, in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Wow. You know, and especially if someone's, like, say, a parent has died, now you don't have a picture of them.
Right.
You know, we all want to,
Right.
you all want to have something that says, yeah, this is love, you
Oh,
know.
yeah.
and-
Wedding albums,
Sure.
first pictures of your children.
Oh my gosh, I mean, you know.
They're just being displaced from what is familiar to you.
Yeah.
And now you're in a totally unfamiliar area.
And with Katrina, it was a completely different culture. They were coming from a very warm, you know, climate into New Jersey, who has the 4 seasons,
Yeah.
and the winters are not
Yeah.
that kind sometimes, and completely different culture.
What are some of the other services and helps that your response team offers? You know, it's food, it's clothing, it's someone to talk to.
We do offer the counseling services. We offer, in as much as we can, direct financial assistance to help them with rental assistance, with getting some of the household materials that they need to start up new homes with, again, and new households. We help them with the clothing, food, some utility payments. So we do a lot of that direct financial assistance. We do provide gift cards for individuals. And then in addition to that, as I said, we do the advocacy. And the advocacy is basically providing an individual that is assigned to this particular family that is their confidant, that they know that they can trust and they can partner with, and that they can walk through their long-term recovery process in order to get them as best as possible to their pre-disaster normal. And in some cases, if we can get them a little bit better than that, then that's great, but we really want to try to get them to their pre-disaster normal.
I would imagine that some, maybe just filling out forms, or who do you
Exactly.
call, or where can you get this kind of help?
Right, and that's something that
Oh,
our
it's-
case managers provide.
Yeah, and just going through that process, filling out the
It's
forms,
very
and it's
overwhelming.
just overwhelming and confusing, and you're dealing with folks who are under stress.
Yeah.
And they're dealing with you know, trauma. So, and some folks that we see weren't making good decisions before the hurricane.
Right.
And a lot of times that's with Catholic Charities, you know, that's what we do, that's what we specialize in.
It is.
People that are sort of marginal or, you know, having a difficult time. Now, this is just completely, you know, throwing them for a loop, and so they need a lot of extra help. So the case management part is huge, and we have we brought on some staff, and Maria supervises them and has great experience, and you know, they do a great job.
Well, thank you again. What about Sandy? Now this, you know, I know I'm speaking probably for a lot of people. You know, you hear a storm's coming, and you kind of think, okay, so we'll get a little flood, or a little wind.
Right.
Well, you know, there's one of our priests, his background training in college was all about weather and different things. And I remember talking to him, and he said, you know, he said, we tracked this for like a couple of weeks, because I even said to him before the storm actually came, I said, Father Mark, do you think it's going to be? And he said, we've been tracking this. It hasn't changed at all. There's no reason to see it change. Yes, it's going to happen. And then when it happened, I said to myself, gosh, I mean, they were, but you know, there's something about us in nature that kind of doesn't want to believe.
Right.
It's never going to happen to us.
I guess that's what it is, Maria. I guess that's
gonna
what it
happen
is.
to
You know,
us.
it always happens on the other coast or something.
Right.
Wow.
And it would have been a lot worse had we not had that preparation where
Preparation
they were.
was excellent. Yeah.
Yeah.
It would have been a
And
lot
a little bit
worse.
of nature helped us too, I understand, right? I mean, the wind sped it up a little bit or something of that
Yeah,
nature. Which,
yeah. If you think about where it actually hit landfall and then the devastation that it created just for the, you know, at that point it had hit landfall, it changes from a hurricane into a tropical storm. But we had gale force winds, we had, where I live, I had mini tornadoes that were touching down in my land. So it was something that nobody knew, and a lot of people lost power, and the power was out for a very long time.
But it also happened, in my mind anyway, you think, okay, down where the water, the shore, you don't think of some of the areas that are also around water, maybe a little inland, the back bays or whatever it happens to be, and the devastation of some of those towns that have been in existence for years.
Yeah.
The storm surge was so great, and it affected as you point out, it's not just the towns along the coast, it's those towns that are along the inlets and creeks that are inland a little bit that never had flooding,
Right.
that never needed flood insurance, and they were not prepared for anything like this. And that's where we're doing a lot of work in the Brick Township area with just neighborhoods that have been devastated.
Completely.
But again, never expected. So I've grown up at the shore and lived the shore all my life. I lived like 500 yards from the beach, and we experienced hurricanes, so we kind of knew what to expect. But these folks, this was brand new, and we haven't seen anything like that since the 60s, and yet clearly not prepared for this, nor would they be.
Yeah, I mean, why would you, unless you Red Cross, FEMA, they kind of initially, you know, and in fact, I guess I was just reading an article in some magazine, you know, about a storm way back, and you know, some of the nurses way back then and how they helped the people in the rivers, and now all of a sudden, you know, Red Cross started almost out of those kind of things, I think, you know, but in FEMA. But yourselves, you know, Catholic Charities, you continue long term, and I'm not saying they don't continue, somewhat long term, but you're there for the long haul.
We are. And that's one thing that throughout the entire time that we've been doing this, since the 9/11 attacks, we've been known and revered as that agency that people can come to and know that they're not going to go away. And we won't go away. We will not go away until we can assist as many individuals as we can. As long as our funding is available, we're there. We're going to be there to walk that walk with them. Long-term recovery is the second phase of disaster. First phase is, as you mentioned, when Red Cross and FEMA come in, and they offer a lot of initial immediate assistance, such as setting up the shelters and providing immediate food assistance and some immediate sheltering needs, clothing and the such, evacuations. And we don't do that phase of phase one. What we do is we do offer some assistance in that phase one. But what our specialty is for that long-term recovery. So in order to provide that, that shelter that is going to become more permanent, to provide that normalcy back into their lives, to provide the counseling in order to allow them to move forward, to know and educate the parents and the school systems as to what to look out for the kids. There's a lot of clients that we have with children that it rains, and if they were down by the shore, as soon as it starts to rain, the kids are starting to worry, like, do we have to move again? Do we need to get in the car and leave? Yeah. So there's a lot of emotional impact that needs to be dealt with, in addition to the financial resources and all the other resources that come into play.
And you know, unless you deal with that, I guess you don't think of that.
Right.
Like when you just mentioned that, Maria, I'm saying to myself, gee, I don't think I would have thought that if it rained, some child is going to all of a sudden say we have to move again.
Yeah.
But that's part of, yes.
We had that, the experience we had post 9/11 taught us a lot. One of which is, you know, there was what they call re-traumatizing events. So at every anniversary, we would have a spike up in people seeking our services because they were re-traumatized. So we learned that then. We know now, after Sandy, there's going to be a lot of these events. We also know that the devastation, there's a greater loss of life, obviously, after 9/11, but the devastation after Sandy is just, it's almost hard to fathom. And we know we will be doing this for quite a while.
Well, aren't there, now was it 4 months ago about or whatever it was, aren't there some, I'll say, areas, towns that people are still not back in living because of the infrastructure or whatever's going on? And
there's a number of communities that individuals, their homes have been more than 50% or completely moved off their foundations or swept away. So there's a number of communities that it's going to be years before they can actually get back in.
I was at a meeting yesterday. A gentleman from Seabright said 80% of the residents of Seabright have not returned.
80%?
80%.
Yep.
Boy, and they might never return then, right? Wouldn't that be a percentage of that? They might just say, because that happened to Katrina, right? Some people never came back.
Never came back, yeah.
You know?
And it depends on a lot. It depends on their financial structure and their ability, because insurance in some cases, especially if they didn't have the flood insurance, it's not going to give them the financial resources to rebuild. And then the resources that they're getting, financial assistance from FEMA, is supposed to be that gap, but the max grant is not going to be enough to, you know, put together with their insurance. And in a lot of cases, a lot of individuals are still waiting to hear from their insurance companies. So when you pull all those funding sources together, in some cases, people are going to have to walk away. Let's
speak a little bit. I know you sort of have a three-prong, I was going to say attack, I don't know if that's the right word. But you know, your services, disaster case management, financial assistance, and trauma counseling.
Right.
Disaster case management. You just start a file, and what happens?
Initially, we haven't done a lot of our own outreach because people are actually getting a hold of us. And we have an 800 number that individuals are either being referred to or have found through our website and through our community partners. They call and they have a phone intake that's taken. And then once that phone intake is taken, a prioritization of the needs are. So obviously we prioritize people that are displaced that have no place to live. We still have individuals that are living in cars. So still, and it's 4 months
In New
out.
Jersey?
In New Jersey.
It's hard to believe, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's hard to believe.
So we prioritize those needs, and based on those needs, then we assign case managers, and then the caseworkers, excuse me. The caseworkers then meet with the individuals face to face. They do an initial intake process, and then that then gets assigned to a case manager, and then the case manager takes it from there and begins their long work process with trying to establish whatever needs need to be filled with the client.
Financially, you like maybe pay some utilities or whatever, food?
We do. Yeah, we've been blessed with donations and with some grants starting out, and we use those. We use the bulk of that money for direct financial assistance. When somebody comes to us, they almost always leave with a plan for us to help them financially. And the purpose of that, one, is to reduce the stress that they're feeling. Secondly, is to help them get to the next step of their plan. So, for example, if they're trying to get back to their job and their car has been damaged, and they don't have any money to fix the car, they put all the money to trying to fix the house or whatever, we'll pay for that car repair, get them back to work, and that makes them self-sufficient. Or they're in a temporary rental until the house is repaired, we'll help them, we'll help them that. So they're trying to pay a rent and a mortgage at the same time on an income they could barely afford one. So we will help them with that. So we use it very judiciously, and it has to be part of what their plan is. It's not just handing out, but at the same time, we don't have a lot of restrictions that some of the other organizations do. We'll be creative. If it's going to work for the person, we'll be able to. And we know that the people who donated this money want it in those people's hands. They don't want it in our hands. Sure. So we're really careful. So at this point, we've, as we start this case management process, we've distributed about $170,000 in direct payments, and then an additional about $60,000 worth of gift cards. When somebody comes in for that initial intake, we try to give them a gift card for food or.
And we know that the monies that come in from parishes or however, we know that, I don't know what, 95% or whatever it is goes out into the hands of the people that need it, which is a wonderful thing to know. And the trauma counseling is also, I think, a gift of just bringing people's emotions to a. Who's eligible?
Everybody.
Anybody who calls your number.
Everybody.
Yeah, who's been affected by Hurricane Sandy. Occasionally get a call from somebody who's having some struggles, but they weren't really. It's not because of the hurricane. We can refer them to another service, but it just has to be affected by Hurricane Sandy. It has
to be affected by Hurricane Sandy, right?
That you're dealing with right now.
That this program deals with, yes.
But how many people have come to you for help? Just Hurricane Sandy, and families, numbers. We have
over 700.
Over 700.
At last count, we have over 700.
Wow.
Households.
Wow.
Households.
And we're really just getting started.
And just getting started after 4 months.
There are, just to give you an idea, Monsignor, there are, if we use FEMA claims, and somebody goes to FEMA and submits a claim as sort of a measurement of how much devastation. Monmouth and Ocean counties, where we work, do most of our work, there's over 80,000 FEMA claims. And it's estimated that 20% of those people will need case management. So that's, doing the math, that's a lot of people.
That's a lot of people.
It's 16,000 people. Yeah. So, yeah, so 700, it's an awful lot when we only have a couple case managers to start off with. It's a huge amount as we...
Just scratching the surface.
As we go down the road.
And we know that we'll have those spikes over the course of at least the next 18 months. We'll have these little spikes where people assume that they didn't need any assistance, they're okay, and then a couple months go by, they realize they're not okay. They really do need some kind of assistance, and then a couple more months will go by and more people will start reaching out for more assistance.
I would imagine that even with a disaster like this, I mean, how many, I don't know what to say, carpenters are there? How many plumbers are there? How many, I mean, when you can't do it all in 2 weeks, you can't build every house back in 2 weeks.
No.
Right.
you know,
There
and
were a lot-
just to get the supplies
There are a lot of missions, folks from other states who have come
that
to.
have come.
Right. That's really gratifying to see that, and they're doing great work. And even that's just a fraction of what needs to be done. Yeah.
You two can't do it all, even though I know you're great people. You know, did you hire people? You have to open up more storefronts or offices? Well, tell me a little bit about that. How can you do it all?
Well, the first thing, and this is interesting, the Department of Labor opened up a program where if we hire people to do disaster work who are unemployed, the Department of Labor pays their salary for the first few months. So that's great for us because then we take the money that's been donated to us, we can put it right in the hands of the people that need it. We're not paying salaries with it. So we've hired 3 people, a 4th one started today, another one starting next week. So we need several. We need several more. There are some other larger grants and contracts coming down the road that we're applying for. So we could be expanding considerably over the next couple of months.
Well, that's good to know that there are people out there. How about volunteers? Can volunteers help you, or do you need, I'll say, professional people in a sense to do your work?
For the case management aspect of it, we want to offer the most specific type of response that is needed, and there's a specific need and skill and talent that's involved in that. So we prefer to have actual hires for that. We do, work in the community, and if we get information regarding volunteers, we connect them to our community partners for that.
Good. How about funding? Have you got additional funding since all of this happened, or who does help you, or other organizations, businesses?
All of the above. We received direct donations. We received money from Catholic Charities USA, United Way, AARP, Ocean First Foundation. So right now, initially, through this initial phase from the beginning of November to now, it's about $500,000 has come in, and it's going out rapidly. But we are expecting some next phase, the next wave of grants to carry us through for further.
Bob, Maria, thank you so very much. If you would like to help Catholic Charities, Diocese of Trenton, Disaster Response. Phone number 800-652-2080 or disasterresponse@cctrenton.org. You know how much we love you and we love all of our people, and we're so glad we can help. Please keep us in your prayers, and we keep you in our prayers. But if you'd like to help, please do so, because, we're all brothers and sisters with a great God who loves us and blesses us. Bless you and thank you. Maria and Bob, thank you so much.